Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Roger Dubuis Easy Diver Chronoexcel chronograph. 46 millimeters in stainless steel. You can see this one of 280 limited edition Roger Dubuis on our website, watchyouwant.com. You can purchase it if you like, and if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now you can see on my wrist 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. It's clear that this Roger Dubuis is designed for a man with a mightier forearm than I possess. So forgive me, I'm going to serve as the wrist surrogate here to give scale and give you a sense of how the watch wears, but it's designed for the guy who just can't get enough size from a 42 millimeter Royal Oak Offshore or a 44 millimeter Hublot Big Bang. I will say though that if bigger is better, this is as good as it gets. 58 millimeters from the extremity of lug to lug. The 46 only refers to the diagonal across the narrowest point of the round portion of the case. So this is actually a truly massive watch. Not a 46 so much as a true 50 plus in terms of the impression on the wrist. This is for the guy who has the tree trunk forearm and needs a watch to match. Now only 15.5 millimeters thick. I say only because I've seen watches far smaller that wear up to 20 millimeters thick, and that is part of the advantage of this watch. Although it's broad, in relation to its size across and in width, it's actually fairly thin, even though, as you can see, 15 millimeters thick plus, with a cantilevered outward bent bezel. This is not one to clear a dress cuff. This is a watch for good times and short sleeves. Now I will say that everything that touches your immense arm is going to be of the finest quality. Roger Dubuis is a little bit more progressive than the other Geneva watchmakers, and by a little bit, I actually mean a lot, and a lot is the operative word for this watch. A lot of detail, a lot of color, a lot of texture, and actually a lot of refinement. Let me start with the obvious, ergonomics. Now I showed you the watch on the wrist, but let's talk a bit about this Roger Dubuis almost purple-blue strap. Natural vulcanized rubber, very thick and sturdy. You can see the inset Roger Dubuis RD motif that lends a little bit of character and definition to the broad expanse of rubber, terminating in the real highlight right here, one of the finest twin-trigger deployment clasps I've ever experienced. Why is it the finest? Because it's a combination of fit, finish, and function. First and foremost, you see this elaborate Roger Dubuis company name and marquee at center. This is actually a combination of engraved metal and inlaid rubber, and it's so finely finished that even though the metal is rigid and the rubber is a molded compound, it's been finished so that it's completely flush, and I can barely feel the seams between them. In fact, if I close my eyes, I'm not sure I can. That's a great start. Twin trigger release, so it doesn't have a clamshell, it isn't friction fit, it's very secure. You have to depress both triggers to open it, and you'll notice that even the triggers themselves are overmolded with natural vulcanized rubber and a contrasting white with a wonderful, almost suede texture. The interior is abundantly finished. Now you can see brushed on the tops of the swing arm components and that gleaming polish on the flanks. Even the underside of the clasp features both polish on its inner walls and a contrasting finish Roger Dubuis recurring RD logo motif inside. No evidence of machining, stamping, or rough edges. This is Geneva standard watchmaking at the highest level, but in a shape and a style that's rarely seen in the canon of Geneva watchmaking. Roger Dubuis is kind of its own breed, taking something approaching Vacheron Constantin or F.P. Journe standards of finish, but using an unabashedly flamboyant, extrovert, and modern paradigm, the oversized sports watch, in the tradition of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, the Hublot Big Bang, watches like the Rolex Deep Sea. This is truly a modern watch with modern presence, and you'll notice that even the color choices are very much 21st century. Now you'll see the interplay of metal between the brushed elements and the rubber elements at the lugs, light and dark alternating, but functionally deliberate. Screwed in, not a spindly spring bar here, you get screw-fixed bars retaining this immense strap, and Roger Dubuis is famous for having straps that actually trace the flare of their broad-shouldered, oversized watches. So you don't wind up with that situation often seen on watches like the Rolex Deep Sea Sea Dweller, where the bracelet seems just a little bit too narrow for the width of the case. Visually, this is very consonant, but Roger Dubuis also realizes that when you have this much space between the lugs, you need something to brace the middle so it doesn't pull out and create a gap with the case flank. That's what this third lug element does here. Not only does it add some differentiation and a little bit of stylistic flair, but it holds the retaining bar secure at the center. very strong given the high value of the watch and the sporting intent of the design. That's a prudent measure, and it's also gorgeous to behold. Now, every other element, from the functional bezel gasket, which you can see purple rubber and nicely consonant with the color scheme of the watch itself, to the inlaid rubber of the bezel, wonderfully finished. Like the clasp, it's so flush that I can't really feel the transition between materials, but the visual contrast between them is very dramatic. The use of rubber throughout, including the contrasting white and purple elements on the caseback, as well as the rings around the crowns and pushers, is very well done, provocative, thoughtful, completely realized. No square millimeter of this watch, and it's got plenty of them, is left unadorned with some sort of nuance or detail. You can see that even the hollows of the lugs themselves feature a silvered carbon fiber pattern, just a little bit more differentiation of texture, of material, of color. Lustrous, it catches the light, and it adds a little bit of life to the watch where you least expect it. That's Roger Dubuis, but nowhere is that more evident than the dial itself. Different planes, materials, finishes, textures. The center is a sort of matte silver metallic, and it glows lightly in direct light. It has a little bit of a light, a little bit of a glow to it that catches the eye. And once it catches your eye, you'll notice a little bit more designer reference from Roger Dubuis. Arabic 12 at 12 o'clock, and the word 6 spelled out at 6 o'clock with a high polish of white gold elements to contrast with the matte silver of that center dial portion. Just outboard, you can see the sunken sub-registers, chronograph minutes up to 45 at 3 o'clock, constant seconds 0 to 60 at 9 o'clock. Each one features metallic blue with concentric circular guilloche radiating out from the pinions of the hands, almost like ripples on a pond, just a little bit more detail, a little bit more nuance, a little bit more richness. And outboard, 2 flanking hour tracks with applied white gold hour indices, abundantly coated with superluminova luminant element. This is a sports watch. It's equally visible at night. Now, granted, you're not going to get quite as much color, but this is one that's designed to be as outstanding from a functional standpoint as it is from an aesthetic standpoint. Whether it's to your taste is largely a secondary matter, but Roger Dubuis makes a powerful statement for a confident wrist here, and they do it with immense detail, right down to the sunken minute track of this dial, which you can see with the combination of dot dimples and blue elements contrasts nicely with the circular brush to metallic chaptering that flows upward from the base of the dial to unify the dial and the bezel. Visually, very well done. Now you can see that the watch features a chronograph as well as a rotating dive bezel, so you can align the index at 60 with the minutes hand and start timing one interval 0 to 60. At the same time, you can start the automatic chronograph movement and time a separate event. So separate simultaneous timing of events, this is a pretty useful watch. And with 300 meter, 1,000 foot water resistance, it is a true sports watch. This one is designed to play rough. Perfect combination of rubber and stainless steel, as well as plenty of water resistance. And what's inside is worth protecting. That's the Roger Dubuis RD78 automatic micro-rotor chronograph movement. Geneva Seal finishing standards. You can see all the hallmark elements right here. Beautifully textured linear Côte de Genève across the bridge of the winding rotor, itself a platinum micro-rotor element. You can also see it on the plates beneath the chronograph levers and wheels. And I want to emphasize that what you're seeing here is the best of both worlds. The convenience of an automatic winding system born on unlubricated ceramic rotor bearings and the full display caseback that you would get with a manual wind. That's the advantage of a micro rotor. You have the winding element in the same physical plane as most of the movement, so it's no thicker than a manual system, and you don't have a half obscured view of the movement itself as you would with a conventional rotor. And what's here to be seen is here to be appreciated. You can see the beautifully straight-grained levers of the chronograph system. You can see the circular grain of all the golden wheels and that blue screw atop the capped column wheel. Roger Dubuis also uses a notably fat, broad, and lustrous version of anglage. That is the polishing of the sheer edges of bridges and levers, as well as the countersinks of screws and jewel pivots. You can see that gleam without even a loop, and you can even see it on the iPhone because it is so broad here. Some companies have such a fine polished edge that you need the benefit of magnification. You can see it gleaming as I move it, but you need the benefit of magnification on some brands to fully appreciate the polished elements. Here you can respect it, appreciate it, enjoy it with the naked eye. I like that about Roger Dubuis. I really enjoy what it brings to the table from an aesthetic standpoint. And there are little nods and winks, just as the aesthetics of the front of the watch are a bit provocative and irreverent, so too are the finishing standards. You can see the black polished fine regulation device just above the balance below my thumb. Now you can see it only reflects light in one direction, so perfectly smooth is it from an optical standpoint. But what sets it apart isn't the perfectly smooth optical finish. It's actually the little devil's tails indices. So you can actually see these little indexing references, plus and minus, to speed up or slow down the balance. But you'll notice that each one features a little triangular devil's tail style, dual devil's tail in this case. That's an element that's often seen with respect to chronograph levers. Here, it's kind of a nod and a wink to the fans of finishing and high horology, a little bit of a playful gesture on the actual heartbeat regulating organ of the watch. But there's plenty to appreciate here above and beyond, including, thanks to the micro rotor, the obvious operation of the chronograph levers. Now you can see right here, I stop the chronograph and I reset it. On the case back, again, because there is no winding rotor in a conventional sense, you can see the operation of the levers about the column wheel. You can see the start. You can see the stop. You can see the reset. It's a great little piece of theater in a watch that is at no loss for drama. See this larger-than-life, beautifully detailed and beautifully built Roger Dubuis Easy Diver Chronoexcel 46mm in stainless steel, one of 280 made, on our website, watchyouwant.com.